Hello and welcome to the second in a trilogy of video logs that Steve Ingall, Head of Business Services at iCore, will be delivering this month. Steve has been in service delivery for over 35 years, holding a variety of senior positions in public and private sector organisations. Over the last 10 years, he's been advocating the need for service delivery to look at ways to become more aligned with business needs. In today's video log, Steve will talk about DevOps, what it is, why do it, and how to go about it.
Hi everyone. You may remember that in my Agile video log I mentioned that Agile was not DevOps, so I suppose I should now explain to you what DevOps actually is. You can do Agile without using DevOps, but you can't really do DevOps without doing Agile. I once did some work at Microsoft where they use Lean, they use Agile, and they use DevOps at the same time, and they have the phrase Agile on steroids when they're doing their software development. So DevOps is actually an outgrowth from Agile and from Lean and started to emerge around 2009. I prefer to call DevOps a community of practice. It's not a methodology, it's not a process. It's about collaboration. It's very much about rapid software engineering, and it needs to be built around the business representative, somebody acting as a product owner, acting as the sponsor and making decisions on behalf of the business. We need to move things quickly, so we can't wait for those decisions to be made when somebody gets around to reading it on email. We use the proven techniques that we've talked about in Agile, but also come with Lean methodology. But the main thing is that this is about cross-functional teams working together, working in collaboration, people in the infrastructure working alongside the application development team, people from the support organisation working in that team as well, somebody looking at the service transition, looking at change management, looking at release management, and making sure that we can get things going as quickly as we possibly can. You might also consider involving the security team within there, and in some places it's actually called DevSecOps rather than just DevOps. And actually putting security in the middle of DevOps gives it the importance that it probably deserves. You can also bring the testing team into there. The thing about DevOps, it's about continuous everything. So it's about continuous integration, it's about continuous delivery, it's about continuous deployment. So having everybody working alongside each other, one big happy family, that's why things get described as tribes and squads. The one thing that you will need to look at is the tools that you use to support the DevOps delivery. You should look at automation, looking at automation around provisioning of infrastructure, but also looking at automation around the deployment of solutions into the live environment. You should try and minimize the amount of documentation that you produce, or where you do produce documentation, make it available electronically. Organizations are using their own wiki sites now to provide that documentation and share knowledge. You can also use defect management tools now. So a lot of organizations are using Jira, part of the Atlassian toolset. And Atlassian actually provide quite a lot of tools that you might want to consider or start looking at. I know that sounds a little bit radical. So why are organizations looking at DevOps? The honesty is, a lot aren't. They think it's too hard. It's not the way that we work around here. I've heard lots of organizations say. I once went to do a presentation where I talked to them about doing lots of small releases was actually a lot less risky than what they do today, which is large, clunky releases. I was literally laughed out of the room because they just didn't believe it. So if they see it as too hard, we've got to really try and break that down to them. The thing is that the business is standing next to them and demanding that they accelerate the delivery of viable solutions and products to their business, to the organization. The business has got lots of pressures of its own. It's got pressures around cost, it's got pressures around competition, consumerization is rife, and we've now got to start delivering services into that Generation X and Generation Y population. There are people out there who just do not know what it's like to not have a mobile phone. There are people out there who are using Fitbit as though it's been attached to their wrist for the rest of their life. Fitbit are actually quite a good organization to use as a role model. Fitbit are one of those organizations that actually stole their technology from somebody else. The guys who invented Fitbit, they started by thinking about Fitbit when they were playing with the Nintendo Wii. So they suddenly thought, what if we can use this sort of motion sensory to do something in the health market with? So they adapted that to what we now know as Fitbit. The guys in Nintendo, by the way, spitting feathers. The thing that we've learned is that the current waterfall approach that a lot of organizations rely and trust on just doesn't go fast enough anymore. IT has become tarnished with words like siloed, bottleneck, expensive, you take too long, you're not keeping up with the modern times. Too many times I've heard people come back to their organization having attended a conference to say, I want one of those. And the CIO has to say, I'm sorry, we can't integrate that into our architecture. And that's what's led to the rise of shadow IT. So people are now saying in parts of the business, if you can't do it for me, if you can't do it cheaper, you can't do it faster, and you can't do it better, then I'm going to find someone who can, or I'll do it myself. In 1995, I did a presentation on the 2 golden rules for service management. Rule number 1 is don't break things, or don't allow things to break. Rule number 2, if things break, I want you to be able to fix them very quickly. I still think that holds true today, and I think DevOps is helping us to deliver this now. Successes from DevOps include increasing the frequency of change, increasing the speed of change, and actually, when things do break, because of the DevOps mentality, we're able to fix things a lot faster than we used to, just by simply backing out a very small change. So hopefully I'm making it sound as though the benefits are worth it. CIOs really need to think about what's their strategy going to be in this space. They need to think about what's the program of work going to be, what timescales are they looking for, and importantly, where am I going to get a leader for this? I would suspect that the leadership may not come from within their own organization. There are, again, YouTube videos, there are lots of presentations that you can go to look at to see people who have jumped on the DevOps bandwagon. The Home Office has delivered a lot of digital product through using DevOps. PayPal have revolutionized the way their system works through a DevOps approach. Spotify have actually shared their journey with everybody, from start to where they are now. Involving everyone in IT will make sure that they all understand that they're going to be impacted by the change, but also that they can be engaged and involved in the change as well. As with Agile, DevOps is definitely a mindset challenge. As I said before, small, frequent change is low risk. I do remember a quote from Mario Andretti, which I'm sure is very overused these days, which is, when you're driving an F1 racing car, if you feel in control, you're not going fast enough. You also need to look at how software is going to help you, and that's where some of the investment may have to come. It's not expensive, but it's also not cheap. The culture change is also in your senior management as much as it is in your workforce. Moving from a position where you're assuring service rather than command and control is sometimes a shift that some people can't make. Providing the what and not the how is how you need to think about it. Ask yourself, we need to get to the other side. Don't tell people, build me a bridge. What do you really need to be bothered about? You need to understand what's above the line. Those are the things that you should be bothered about. What's on the line and what's below the line, you shouldn't really care. You do need to make sure that you have thought about what your non-functional requirements are going to be, and maybe have some policies that describe how they're going to be applied. But don't over-proceduralize everything. For the first time as well, we really need to understand the difference between a product and a service. Service has become too overused a word. A product is something we produce, so you need to understand what the minimal viable product is. A service is something you perform on behalf of somebody else. So again, understand what's the minimum viable bureaucracy. One thing I can assure you is, expect it and encourage it to evolve, to grow, and to improve. So it sounds a bit like Mission Impossible, I know. So how are you going to get started on this? First, you need to think about what's the problem that you're actually trying to solve. And here I use techniques like Kepner-Trago to help me think about what's the situation appraisal and understand what's the object and what's the defect that I'm actually trying to solve here. DevOps is not right for everything. In fact, just doing Agile may be all you need to think about. So define what your principles are for DevOps. Maybe even consider adapting the Agile manifesto to be a DevOps manifesto. DevOps isn't really right for some of the big corporate products that you use, but it is actually usable within a commercial off-the-shelf offering. And it's definitely usable when you've got a web-based solution. One thing that you do need to think about is what are the roles that we need and how am I going to fulfill those roles? You need to be able to clearly articulate the what it is, why we are doing it, who's leading it, and who's involved in it. You almost need to come up with a mantra that people will just keep saying over and over again. The one I like, make change boring. You have to challenge everything as you go. Think 5 whys. I've already mentioned, am I bothered? So almost think like a 6-year-old. Why? Perhaps we should get Catherine Tate in. One thing that I do think, though, is that it's not the way that we work around here, just makes hysterical. So you need to take the first step. Use Agile. Think small and start going. Success stories are out there. The speed of delivery of change is now 30 times faster than it used to be. The successful change implementation is now double what it used to be. And mean time to restore services 12 times faster than it is in the old world. Let's just get going.
Thanks so much for that, Steve. Anyone who wants more information about DevOps or more from our video logs, then go to the iCore website at www.icore-ltd.com. The third video log from Steve will be on digitalisation and will be available shortly. If you want to see all 3 in the series, then go to the Insights section on our website.